Are you struggling to get your work done? And do you feel like you're constantly being distracted by your phone, notifications, your tablet, your laptop, and that you just can't make decent, measurable progress on the things that matter to you? Well, keeping everything simple, let's talk about the 2-minute rule and the 5-second rule. How these two simple habits can help change the direction of your life and start making meaningful, measurable progress today. Let's dive right in. Welcome back to the Keeping Everything Simple podcast. I'm your host and fellow student, Michael Klukas, and on this show, we boil down complicated topics into simple and actionable tips. So we're starting off with the 2-minute rule here, just jumping right into it, because I want to make sure that you guys are getting something of value out of this. Now, what is the 2-minute rule? The 2-minute rule by itself is the simple idea that you should, if you're going to start something or you're having trouble starting something, set a timer. Set a timer for 2 minutes so that way you are giving yourself a start and finish of how long you will work on a certain task, a certain project, whatever you've been putting off, and you have to sit down, time it for 2 minutes, and that's all you need to do. That sounds pretty simple, right? The whole reason that this is so simple and why it matters is because the 2-minute rule is the idea that it is easier for an object in motion to stay in motion. So if you start even for just 2 minutes on something that you've been putting off for, a week, a month, a year, something, whatever it is, if you just give yourself 2 minutes to actively start on something, then you're going to have a much easier time maintaining that momentum, maintaining the trajectory that you have started, even if it feels, kind of minuscule in the grand scheme of whatever you're working on. What's also nice about this is that there's a variety of ways that you can implement just a 2-minute rule. It can be, hey, I'm going to start and work on this project for 2 minutes. If you're in like the ideation phase where you're thinking about and trying to brainstorm stuff up, it's like, okay, I'm going to start for 2 minutes. I'm just going to think about what I'm working on, what I want to make, what I want this to be. And then at the end of it, you don't have to keep going. Now, the trick here is that it's not so much a matter of I'm only going to work on this for 2 minutes. It's supposed to be that mental trick to get yourself into the right space of like, okay, I just have to do this for 2 minutes. But again, it's easier to keep going when you have already started making progress. For myself, I use this at work all the time because I constantly get distracted. I constantly get pulled away from whatever I'm working on. And for me, it's hard to say, all right, I have to make these customer phone calls. I have to correct this misdone paperwork. I have to track down this other employee and I have to get this signature from a driver who may be, halfway down to California. And real quick, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you are finding any value on this, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Ring that notification bell so you know every time that we upload a new episode. It really does help us out so much, and I greatly appreciate it. If you're listening to us on Spotify or a podcast app, then make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and give us a follow. That way again, every time I upload a new episode. And it just stokes my ego just a little bit more. But with that, let's jump right back into the podcast. But the thing is, I still have to find a way of getting all the stuff done, balancing out the work. And for me, that is the 2-minute rule, because it might be annoying, it might be frustrating, but at the same time, if I am at least dedicating 2 minutes to getting started on there, then I have made progress and I can at least know where I'm going and what step I need to take next, because it's all about just taking one step after another, because that is how progress is made over time. Just one step, 2 minutes, that's all you need to do. But so then what about the 5-second rule? What's that? Well, 5-second rule is all about getting over that mental barrier that's stopping you from even doing anything. So much of the things that we want to do, so many of the things that we are striving to do, they can feel kind of overwhelming, or we feel like we can actually just put them off for, an indefinite amount of time. For myself, while I was living at university, the first time I was going to school, it was hard to convince myself, while I'm surrounded by all my friends, I need to whip out my laptop and I need to start typing away at this essay rather than going out to dinner, rather than sitting down and watching this movie, rather than doing any other number of college student things that would be so much more fun than sitting down and writing a paper. But that's where the 5-second rule comes in. That's where this idea of if you are thinking about it for more than 5 seconds, you're likely not going to do it. People in, I believe it was like Mark Manson or whatnot, use it in like the dating scene where they talked about the idea of if you don't make a move within 5 seconds of what your initial thought is, then you're likely just not going to do it whatsoever. And so for myself, going back to the example of a paper, it'd be thinking about, okay, if I think about this for too long, I'm not going to actively make any progress on this. I'm not even going to start the 2-minute rule because I will put it off, I'll get distracted, and I will want to do something else. And for myself then, in my life today, it's been a matter of waking up early because I still want to wake up early. It's using the 5-second rule of like, hey, my alarm's gone off. I have a decision to make in 5 seconds. I either get up or I let the next alarm snooze and I wake up to that one. So for myself, it's combining both of them together where I have 5 seconds to make a decision, but the next alarm goes off in 2 minutes. So it's my brain kind of working in cycle of like, okay, I can get up with the first one in 5 seconds. Fantastic. If not, I got 2 extra minutes just to lay here and contemplate my life decisions before the next 5 seconds hit. But ultimately, the idea of the 5-second rule is that you just have to kind of jumpstart your brain when you are debating what to do, how to get started, and when to get started. The whole point is that if you are thinking about it for more than 5 seconds, you're going to have a much harder time actively getting started than if you just do the thing. The one way in which I'm going to refer to this is the idea of the minimum viable effort. So this is taken a spin on like the idea of a minimum viable product, which a lot of those of us who do entrepreneurship or try to sell services and products to people, we know that, hey, the minimum viable product is just here's the quick, easy version. Here is what I was able to slap together in a weekend, and that's solving a direct problem, and yada, yada, yada. But the main thing for the minimum viable effort is choosing one, like if it's a certain long-term project that you're working on, choosing one particular action, one particular thing that no matter what, if you do it, you will get a little bit closer to that end goal. For myself, if it is making these episodes on the podcast and on YouTube and being able to write on LinkedIn, it's a matter of like, okay, at the very least, I have to write out 3 topic headers to fit into a single video, to fit into a single episode that I can talk about, that I can expand on, and that I have experience, actively pursuing and doing in my life. And so for myself, that is my minimum viable effort. It fits into the 2-minute rule. If I think about it for more than 5 seconds, I'm probably not going to do it. But if I can get started on it and I fall within that 2-minute rule and that 2-minute time frame, then for myself, I will make reasonable, decent progress towards my long-term goal. Because at minimum, I have it set up so that way within those 2 minutes, I'll be able to make somewhat decent progress because it sets myself up the next time for success. But in the more likely scenario, because I've already started, I will have a much easier time continuing and going forward with the progress that I'm currently working on. Real quick, if you are enjoying this episode, then you might also enjoy our weekly newsletter, the Keeping Everything Simple newsletter. Yes, there is a very obvious naming scheme going on here, but that's besides the point. If you want to get an inside look into how some of the lessons and stories I talk about play out in my life, then the weekly newsletter would be a great way to dive deeper into that, as well as getting resources and recommendations for books, articles, other YouTube videos that will give you greater insight into some of these complicated topics and how we're going to be able to boil them down more and more together. Subscribe down below in the link in description to the Keeping Everything Simple newsletter, and I will see you in your inbox. All right, let's get back to the podcast. And I will admit, because these sound so simple, they also are very easy to push to the side and say, okay, well, yeah, that sounds nice, but what about me? What if I can't maintain my attention for 2 minutes? Well, then in of itself, it's still a matter of practicing. All this stuff is practicing the habits, practicing the mindsets that are around them, and practicing the skills that allow you to actively make the most of just 2 minutes, as well as make quick decisions within 5 seconds. For myself, I suck at making decisions, it's a pretty bad problem actually. But the thing that helps me so much is the fact that if I can make a decision within 5 seconds of if I'm going to do something, if I'm going to say something, if I'm going to start working on something, then it makes life easier for me because I'm and this relates to the last episode, which you can check that one out about the word reliability, it allows me to be more reliable in what I'm thinking, what I'm saying, what I want to do. And at the same time, helps me make reasonable and measurable progress because at that point I've started and then I can keep the ball rolling because it's all about momentum and all about giving yourself that initial push to get over that hurdle of procrastination or worrying about being perfect or whatever's holding you back. So I encourage you guys that if you are struggling, again, to make measurable progress, think of the minimum viable effort. What system do you need to have in place? What are the minimum things that you can do to really make good progress on something that's meaningful and important to you? And then give yourself the 5-second rule of if you think about it for more than 5 seconds, know that you will probably put it off. But if you can make a decision within 5 seconds to get started, then you will be much more likely to actively do the thing. And if you can set yourself a time limit of 2 minutes and follow the 2-minute rule and just work on that project, work on that piece of paper, work on that homework, that essay, work on a project at work, send those emails, just work on it for 2 minutes, then you will give yourself much more momentum because it's so much easier for an object in motion to stay in motion. And that's what you guys can do if you're able to maintain some level of motivation so that way you can again make meaningful progress. But with that, if you watch this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, ring that notification bell so you know every time I upload a new episode, and comment down below, would you prefer doing the 5-second rule or the 2-minute rule? Which one have you tried before? If you're listening to us on Spotify or another podcast app of choice, make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and give us a follow-up. It helps me out so much and shares the show with other people just like you. With that, have an amazing day, you amazing people. Keeping everything simple. I will see you all in the next episode. Go out there and do great things.